Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Welcome. Bienvenidos a todos. Espero que estén muy bien. So the question in this video is, how do you say MRI in Spanish? We're going to learn how to say that, and we'll look at some example sentences that you can use when talking to patients. This video is bilingual so that Spanish-speaking medical professionals can also learn the English terminology. ¿Cómo se dice IRM? También conocida por TRM en inglés. Vamos a ver unos ejemplos también. Si usted está aprendiendo inglés y quiere hablar con pacientes, puede aprender a hacer eso. So first of all, the question, what does MRI stand for? Well, MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. Magnetic resonance imaging. In Spanish, the way that you say MRI is imagen por resonancia magnética. Imagen por resonancia magnética. The word imagen is a feminine word. It takes the article la, so it is la imagen. La imagen. And this is known as IRM. So the equivalent of saying MRI in Spanish would be IRM. IRM. Now, it's very important to note that also some Spanish speakers might refer to the IRM as the TRM. So we're going to look at that as well. So again, in English, magnetic resonance imaging. En español, imagen por resonancia magnética. Imagen por resonancia magnética. So practice pronouncing that a few times. Recomiendo que pronuncien varias veces magnetic resonance imaging. So again, here we have just the terms, magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. En español, imagen por resonancia magnética. Imagen por resonancia magnética. IRM. Now, when you refer to this, you would refer to it as la or una IRM, because the word imagen is feminine. La imagen por resonancia magnética. You should know that there is another term for imagen por resonancia magnética in Spanish, and that is tomografía por resonancia magnética. So some Spanish speakers may prefer to use the term TRM or tomografía por resonancia magnética. Tomografía por resonancia magnética. So again, in Spanish, la IRM o la TRM. And this would also be feminine. It would take the article la, because the word tomografía is a feminine, grammatically feminine word. So we say la tomografía, la tomografía por resonancia magnética. So a common expression to order an MRI, for example, if a doctor orders an MRI, the expression to order an MRI means, in Spanish, is pedir una IRM. Pedir una IRM, or you might hear pedir una TRM. En inglés, la expresión es to order an MRI. To order an MRI. Order significa o quiere decir pedir. Pedir. One more time. To order an MRI. pedir una IRM, pedir una TRM. And again, in Spanish, it's una because the principal word here, the noun, is imagen, which the I stands for. So, una imagen por resonancia magnética. And it's also grammatically feminine for tomografía por resonancia magnética. So, we say una tomografía por resonancia magnética. So, if you're explaining to patients who orders an MRI, this is an example. You might say, for the doctor orders MRIs, and notice the S is here because it's images. In English, we say MRIs. The doctor orders MRIs. In Spanish, we would say, la doctora pide las IRM. And it's las because here the word is images. It's plural. Las IRM. So the plurality of the word in Spanish is reflected here in the plural article at the beginning. In English, it's at the end. If it's a male doctor, then el doctor pide las IRM. So this is the conjugation of the verb pedir in the present tense. I do have a separate medical Spanish video with the verb pedir, stem changing verbs, so you might look that up on my channel homepage. And I also have a playlist for medical Spanish. You can find it in that playlist. Okay, so we have the doctor orders MRIs, la doctora pide las IRM, el doctor pide las IRM. And remember, just to give you a visual of the plural, the word for image in Spanish is la imagen. La imagen, the stress is on this syllable, the ma. So imagen, imagen. If you make this word plural, in order to keep the stress on that same syllable as a singular word, we have to add a written accent mark. So we say imágenes, keep the stress on that ma. Las imágenes, las imágenes, la imagen, las imágenes, la imagen, las imágenes. So the image and the images. In Spanish, la imagen por resonancia magnética, that's one of them, and plural. Las imágenes por resonancia magnética. So this plural one, the English equivalent would be this here, the MRIs with the S. If you're explaining to a patient that they need an MRI, you would say, in English, you need an MRI. Si usted le está explicando a un paciente, una paciente que necesita una IRM, en inglés se dice, you need an MRI. You need an MRI. Noten que agregamos en inglés la N porque cuando decimos en inglés el sonido de la letra M, en realidad empieza con el sonido de una vocal, entonces por eso tenemos que agregar la N en inglés, an MRI. No decimos a MRI, decimos an MRI. You need an MRI. Okay, so if you're telling a Spanish-speaking patient you need an MRI, you would say in Spanish, usted necesita una IRM. Usted necesita una IRM. Or you could say the whole thing, usted necesita una imagen por resonancia magnética. Una imagen por resonancia magnética. That's kind of a mouthful, and inevitably you'll probably stumble over it a little bit in Spanish. It's natural. Just the more you practice, the better you'll get. Okay. You are going to need an MRI. Usted va a necesitar una IRM. So, in the future, en el futuro, en inglés, you are going to need, usted va a necesitar. You are going to need, usted va a necesitar. You are going to need an MRI. Usted va a necesitar una IRM. Remember that some native speakers may prefer to use the term tomografía por resonancia magnética, so that would be una TRM. Una TRM. One more time, you are going to need an MRI. Usted va a necesitar una IRM. If you want to tell the patient that you have the results of their MRI, you can say, of course, we have the results of your MRI. Si usted le está explicando al paciente que tiene los resultados de la IRM, entonces en inglés decimos, we have the results of your MRI. We have the results of your MRI. We have the results of your MRI. So in Spanish, if you're telling the Spanish-speaking patient that you have the results of the MRI, then you would say, tenemos los resultados de su IRM. Tenemos los resultados de su IRM. Or, tenemos los resultados de su TRM. To tell a patient that they need to make an appointment for an MRI, in Spanish, we use the expression hacer una cita to make an appointment. So putting it together with the modal verb to need, you say in Spanish, usted necesita hacer una cita para la IRM. Usted necesita hacer una cita para la IRM. So modal verbs are very useful, so if you have questions about modal verbs or you need a good review, I also have a video on that. You can find it under my regular Spanish playlist, just Spanish modal verbs. So notice that you conjugate the verb here, usted necesita, and then you end it with an infinitive. So, usted necesita hacer una cita para la IRM o la TRM. Si necesita explicarle a un paciente que necesita hacer una cita, entonces en inglés se dice you need to make an appointment. Hacer una cita, to make an appointment. You need to make an appointment for an MRI. Okay, well that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. And be sure to check out my other medical Spanish videos. Bueno, llegamos al final. Espero que haya sido útil para usted este video. Y recuerde que puede encontrar mis otros videos de inglés en mi canal en YouTube. Es todo. Chao.